With a script in place that would keep the Alien series on modern-day Earth, thus keeping the budget low, and bean counters looking for further ways to cut corners, Fox began contemplating directors for their follow-up to Alien vs. Predator. Firstly, they checked in with 2004 AVP director Paul W.S. Anderson, but he passed on the project so he could focus on his remake of Death Race 2000. Eventually, the search led the studio to the Brothers Strause. Now, there are a lot of videos out there that depict the Brothers Strause as inept, inexperienced directors, and this is just bad journalism. It's good for a narrative if one wants to shun AVP2 by making the directors out to be ignorant, but it's just wrong. Greg and Colin began experimenting on effects when they were teens before they moved to Chicago, where they worked on effects for commercials. After they saw Terminator 2 in 1991, they felt they had to get to LA, or they would be stuck doing commercials for the rest of their lives. So they took the leap and began working on major film effects. During the 1990s, they worked on many big films like Volcano, Nutty Professor, X-Files, and even an iceberg scene in Titanic. While doing this, they found work where they could, directing many music videos and commercials. Leading up to AVP, they continued film effects on 300, X-Men The Last Stand, Terminator 3, and The Day After Tomorrow. Ironically, when 2004's Alien vs. Predator was being talked about, they were one of the teams that pitched a concept to producer John Davis. And they wanted to focus on AVP comic creator Peter Briggs' elements, which was the perfect call for the direction of this series. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out our Part 1 video of AVP, where we go over this creator's ideas. By the time AVP2 was ready for directors, Fox had a good relationship with the brothers' special effects company Hydraulics, based out of Santa Monica, and the brothers were given the opportunity to pitch some ideas to the studio for future projects. The brothers arrived at Fox to pitch an idea for Wolfenstein based on the video game of the same name. Fox seemed interested, but then they mentioned an Alien vs. Predator sequel. When they heard this, they decided to try their luck at the franchise again. Executives asked the brothers to put together a visual presentation of what they would do with the sequel, and they had a week to do it. For the brothers, it was a huge opportunity, as they had not been the directors of a major studio film yet. Who wouldn't see this as a blessing of immense proportions? The truth was, the studio was convinced that the small-town script they had was the direction the franchise should go. Although they listened to pitches, the studio was really looking for someone that fit the movie and the studio's goals. What really helped these brothers was that they were established special effects specialists, and therefore would easily know how to save money on that side of things. They also had some awards for directing videos, so it wasn't like they had no experience. Then, they were consistent and reliable with projects from the past time and time again. What made everything work with the brothers is that, like the studio, the brothers shared the desire to make a hard R film. The brothers were given an early draft of the script so they could inspect it as potential directors and to bid on the film as an effects company. The brothers involved one of their effects team writers named Liam O'Donnell to help them polish details for another pitch. O'Donnell had some issues with the predalien growing so fast and the ship returning to Earth. He stated it didn't seem too planned out. Liam asked Greg if they should pitch another idea, but the brothers knew Fox was pretty committed to this script, and if they went in trying to change everything, they might lose the chance to direct the movie. Liam continued to suggest changing the script, but Greg's logical response was, "Yeah, I just think we have to work within what this pitch is and try to make it the best version of this pitch." So Liam helped the brothers prepare for their presentation, and the brothers focused on making a 7-type atmosphere for the film with lots of rain. And when they said this to producer John Davis, who produced every Predator theme filmed in the past, he told them that would be pretty taxing. But the brothers were undaunted, and since they were passionate about the direction they wanted to take the movie, the studio acquiesced to their desires. Our goal was to make the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with scary creatures. It was exactly the thing Fox wanted to hear. No Ripley, no insistence on making the film in space, no big-name stars, just violence on Earth. After 3 meetings, they were given the job to direct the sequel. It was spring 2006. After being hired, the director sought out original Texas Chainsaw Massacre cinematographer Daniel Pearl to help them visualize the film. To help the brothers, Fox commissioned longtime costume and design pals Studio ADI because founders Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. had been with the series since Aliens and were now linked with the brand. This company was a huge signal to fans dedicated to the franchise, but immediately Fox began making cuts to ADI to save money. They told ADI that they could only redesign heads for aliens. They wanted them to use bodysuits from Alien Resurrection and AVP in order to save money. Though they could modify the suits, they didn't want them to redesign them from the ground up again. One of the things Colin Strause wanted was to have the warrior aliens with ridged domes like James Cameron's Aliens. Instead of having the creatures brownish like Alien Resurrection and Alien 3, they wanted the creatures to be harder to see in dark environments, and therefore they would be colored dark black and metallic hues. The creature design remained the same as earlier versions, with some other tweaks. But for this film, the worst tweak was the pointed jaw. But ADI was trying to push creative ideas. Now that the aliens were on Earth, they wanted to do alien hybrids from local animals, but the budget was just too tight. However, the one win ADI got was that everyone, including the Strause team, thought it was crazy not to focus on the predalien in the film. Killing it off so early was kind of dumb. Finally, the studio and John Davis agreed. This change altered the entire structure of the script's first act, though, and from those changes came a total disregard for time and logical gestation periods that the first version of the script respected. Now that everything was going to be sped up in the updated script to get to action, it would make the entire film unbelievable. One of the things most shocking about the predalien design was the final version of the creature the Brothers Strause chose. Earlier versions of the predalien were just gruesome and appeared terrifying. The creature was sleeker, more unique and interesting, but then ADI was asked by the brothers to put dreadlocks on the beast, and it turned into another alien with mandibles and shitlocks. Although the color of the creature would be more predator, it was simply not noticeable in the film due to lighting. To keep secrecy, the predalien was named Chet, after the character of the same name from Weird Science. This was done so that whenever notes were sent about the predalien, it was a code to maintain secrecy if it fell in the wrong hands. In an attempt to connect the film to previous ones, the brothers tried to get Danny Glover to return as Harrigan, having that character, now in his retirement, living in the town where the aliens would infest. When this didn't happen, they turned to Adam Baldwin to reprise his role as Agent Garber from Predator 2. But alas, things did not work out. Instead of using him, they made a new character called Colonel Stevens. They also tried to get Bill Paxton to play the chef at the diner, and it was stated he wanted too much money. Michael Biehn was even approached to play one of the Special Forces dudes at the end of the movie, but the studio objected to the idea. Since Ian White did so good as Scar in the AVP film recently, they commissioned him to return for this film. Tom Woodruff once again donned the alien costume for all close-ups for the 4th time in the franchise history. The film was scheduled 52 days of shooting, and cameras rolled on September 23, 2006 in Vancouver, British Columbia. The location was picked for 3 main reasons. The first, they needed a location that looked like Colorado. The second was that there were great tax breaks working in Vancouver. The final reason was that Fox worked there recently on films like the 2nd and 3rd X-Men and the 2 Fantastic Four films, so there were experienced crews that could be utilized to make the shoot easier. During filming, the brothers were their best confidants, and they balanced each other. I am able to turn to my brother and confide in him when I'm not sure something is working right. I can ask if this idea is stupid, and he can go, yeah, it is a fucking stupid idea, or vice versa. If we have a difference in opinion, we will battle out the idea before we actually get to set. The brothers worked in complete tandem and were interchangeable at any moment, as they were mostly side by side through the production. One take could be directed by Greg, and the second could be directed by Colin, and they tried to tweak each other. For the most part, they were a unified duo. Colin was more focused on the visual effects side of things, though, but their approach was paramountly on the same page. One thing going against the brothers on their first directing gig was Fox itself. The studio often quashed creativity on the film. A perfect example was the sewer scene, where Wolf was setting up traps to kill the aliens in an intelligent way. They wanted Wolf to have no hand-to-hand combat with the creatures, as it was assumed by the Strause team that melee situations would easily cause the predator to be swarmed and overtaken. So they planned a cat and mouse theme while the predator was in the tunnels. But Fox vetoed the idea because they wanted to see the aliens and predator brawl. The Strause team thought it was a stupid idea, but they had to come up with something fast as the scene was needed to be shot. So this is where the idea of Wolf fighting two aliens at the same time came up, and the studio loved it, even though some on the Strause team thought it was a compromise. In fact, some of the Strause team members reflected that Fox cared little about delivering proper fan service, because when they argued about things that needed to be taken more respectfully, Fox's attitude towards their fans and their film was more like this. The fans thought they wanted this, but we're going to make stuff that's going to bring in a bigger mass audience, and these fans, you can't listen to these idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. Now, whenever you click on AVP2 vids about the lighting on the film, there is great confusion as to what happened. Many videos will tell you that the Strause brothers made the set too dark and that their DP Daniel Pearl constantly wanted to brighten the scenes as a result. Sometimes this quote is often used to back it up. Seeing an alien in broad daylight or in plain view is just going to look stupid no matter what you do with it. The reason it worked in all of the other films is that you had a dark spaceship. You had flashing lights, you had steam, you had all of these great elements to cover them up. If you don't do that, they are going to look like guys in suits. We picked locations that were earthbound, and yet still reminiscent of the other films. The power plant is still going to look like something out of Alien. Though they did say this, there are many sources that state Pearl thought the film was too bright, and therefore darkened the scenes to differentiate it. However, I have it from a good source that the directors themselves said that Fox adjusted the lighting in post and were a bit frustrated by that. You can draw your own conclusions, but if you look at footage on the set, there's plenty of light there to see details, and it looks fairly good. So stories that it was filmed too dark is overrated, because images can be changed during post, and in AVP2 you can definitely tell that the film was seriously color corrected in post. Regardless, like most Alien films since Alien 3, the editing for the project took place while filming occurred. Editor Dan Zimmerman had a storyboard Bible and previs material, and when footage came in, he would match it every day of the week. Zimmerman was so fast that the print of the film was constantly updated, and during filming, if a scene seemed to miss something, the crew would pivot to match what was needed, or just cut scenes that were no longer needed, thanks to seeing the edited product realized. The shoot was extremely fast-paced and efficient, and for the actors, it was very, very cold. Often they would be soaked, huddled by portable heaters during rain scenes, and after setups, they would film scenes with manufactured rain falling on them in very cold weather. After the shot, they would then return to their little heaters huddling, waiting for another take if there was one. It has been like ice water. The first few days, I was so chilly that I had to stop and think about what I was saying. Everyone involved in the project was warned about these conditions long before the shoot began. When the cast was all ready to sign for their parts, the Brothers Strause told them multiple times about how cold and difficult the shoot would be when they got to the rain moments. Whatever the hardship, the crew knew they were making an alien movie, and many knew whatever they went through would be part of a bigger franchise. Some, like Johnny Lewis, were realistic about what the movie was long before it was released. The intent is awesomeness, not some deep existentialist statement about the human condition. For the score, Brian Tyler was commissioned, and the Strause brothers asked him to make a blend of Aliens and Alien 3 for familiarity. They also wanted callbacks to Predator by using bongo drums. Brian devised the score at his home studio, and the directors and producers would visit him multiple times, going over his work as he went and commented over it. When he was finished with that stage, he would then move to a studio to record the orchestra that was needed for certain tracks. And this is that footage.
All right, thanks, guys. That's it.
The first cut of the film was around 2 hours, but Fox wanted it shorter for more ticket sales. The brothers did as they were told, removing many scenes, some which we will cover in part 3. As the film approached release, the brothers conferred with writer Liam O'Donnell loosely about the next AVP. They had been throwing around ideas since before January 2007, and their first idea had been written down in a treatment, and it took place sometime in the future, where space travel was achieved, and global warming has caused the Queen from the first AVP film to be freed. We will cover this treatment at the end of our Part 3 video. However, by the time the film was about to release, the brothers changed their tune and stated that as far as they were concerned, the Earth story was over. Their intention was that the next one was spacebound. Liam stated that the brothers' version would be about a special ops team going on the offensive against predators with their technology on a colony or the alien homeworld. The next film I want to do would be back on the alien homeworld, and I'd introduce viewers to aliens so big they're almost dinosaur size, or even bigger. This wouldn't happen though, and before they could go forward, they had to see how their film would do at the box office. Instead of focusing on the sequel, they continued working on the unrated DVD scenes that would be released after the theatrical run of the movie, which would have about 7 or 8 minutes of extra footage. In the end, the film would cost $40 million. The marketing of the film was held back strategically due to I Am Legend. Legend was on everyone's mind, and it was marketed everywhere. So the decision was to wait till the film came out and then push marketing for this movie to avoid being drowned by the massive juggernaut advertisements for Legend. Most of the stuff that were tie-ins and ads really started being pushed on December 14th, 2007, about 2 weeks before AVP2 was released. To date, Alien Resurrection and Predator 2 were the only films released in the fall for the franchise, while the rest were released during summers. Honestly, AVP2 would have fared better during the summer of 2007 because the competition it was up against during this Christmas was just too much. Around the time of December 14th through 16th, the first 5 minutes of the film was released with a few choice shots removed on the internet to garner excitement for the film. Film journalists with access to studios began immediately praising the first 5 minutes as so much better than the first AVP. Some of these very outlets still exist today, and they have a significantly smaller audience because some of them never learned that critics are there to impartially review a movie, not market or echo a studio's selling point.
Fantastic.
Is it good? What do we got?
Cuisine is always here, Christian. So much great food, trading cards, collector cups to get in.
Regardless, the soundtrack for the movie was released early, which was normal for the time back in those days. It was released on December 11th, 2007. One thing that was missing from the marketing was the AVP Requiem novel. Mark Saraceni, who wrote the first Alien vs. Predator film novel, was given a lot of miscommunication and old scripts from the studio, and as a result, he had to rewrite his manuscript fast, and we covered this in our Alien vs. Predator videos. The author said this about the Requiem novel: "I am likely the reason there was no tie-in novel to Requiem. I was in the middle of a deadline for one of the coffee house mysteries I write with my wife as Cleo Coyle, and HarperCollins called with an offer. They just got the absolute, positively certain final script. They were still sorry about the previous mess, and they wanted to know if I was interested in writing the tie-in for Requiem. I was very interested, but they could only give me 2 to 3 weeks to write it, starting that day. As I was on another deadline for an original novel, I regretfully declined. Apparently, they found no author willing to write on such a tight deadline. A shame, because my AVP tie-in was a USA Today bestseller, as well as a New York Times bestseller, and I am certain the second novelization would do nearly as well." An AVP Requiem game was released for Sony PSP on November 12, 2007. Studio ADI released AVP Requiem Inside the Monster Shop, and Inkworks released a trading card set that consisted of 81 cards and a bunch of chase cards. After seeing this movie, I had zero interest in getting the cards because the chase cards were like one to a box, making it very pricey and difficult to get an entire set. The cards actually look better than the film because you can see what's going on in the pictures, and a lot of the images look 10 times better than they were in the film because there was light. And a lot of these cards were used for some of the images that I used during these videos. NECA would release an Alien Warrior and a Predalien figure in December alongside the film. More figures were released the following year, but by then the film was on DVD and there was not a large demand for them. Alien vs. Predator Requiem premiered at the Los Angeles Comic Book and Sci-Fi Convention in Los Angeles on November 4th, 2007, and it would not be released to mass theaters until December 25th, 2007. On December 14th, 2007, big competitors for AVP2 were released. The first was I Am Legend, and it was massive, eventually making $256.3 million. The big family film for the time was Alvin and the Chipmunks, which made a whopping $217.3 million. Also released that week was The Kite Runner. The week before AVP2 arrived, on December 21st, 2007, the romantic crowds got P.S. I Love You, which made $53.7 million, while Tim Burton fans could watch Sweeney Todd go on a killing rampage. The silly comedy Walk Hard was also out, as well as Tom Hanks going for drama in Charlie Wilson's War. Then there was the big surprise National Treasure, Book of Secrets, which made a whopping $219.9 million. And this movie, along with I Am Legend, claimed the top spots when AVP streeted on December 25th, 2007. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem opened 6th during the week of Christmas, bringing in $16.8 million, which was a good start. And also released alongside AVP2 was The Bucket List with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, The Great Debaters with Denzel Washington, which would make $30.2 million, while The Water Horse hoped to dethrone Alvin and the Chipmunks, but it did not. There Will Be Blood also released that week as well. Within 2 weeks, word of mouth and critical disdain for this movie pretty much ravaged AVP2, and during the week of January 4th through 10th, the creature feature was in the 11th spot. By the next week, it would drop to the 18th spot and soon disappear just 3 or 4 weeks after its release. Alien vs. Predator Requiem was not considered a hit. On a budget of $40 million, without marketing costs, the film only made $41.7 million domestically. Overseas, it fared better, making $88.4 million, bringing the world gross to $130.2 million. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem was savaged by critics and would go on to be nominated in bad ways as biggest disappointment of the year, worst excuse for a horror movie, and worst prequel or sequel for the year. Many critics stated it was too gory, too loud, or dull action that you could barely see. There were few to lift up the film at the time. And after these sharp criticisms, the Alien vs. Predator franchise was indefinitely canceled. A year later, they would decide to make a new Predator movie with Robert Rodriguez, and we will cover this film before the end of the year if we can manage to do it on the channel. Before I close, I want to really note a channel that was useful for some of my research, and that was Studio ADI's YouTube channel. I highly suggest Alien fans to check this out, as there's really a lot of cool stuff. And the effects guys seem very caring towards their audience and fans. We're done with the behind-the-scenes coverage for this movie. Next week we will cover the movie itself, and hopefully there won't be a lot of butthurt feelings about different points of views, good or bad. But in a movie about feuding aliens, you should expect arguments. We will see you next time. If you like what you see here, click like and subscribe. Super thanks helps, and so does sharing.